Hey Rick, how are you?
Doing well, Jeff. Glad to see you.
Good to see you. Let's talk about 2025 from an inventory perspective. What parts of the country have inventory? What parts of the country need inventory? And are we overbuilt anywhere? Let's get into it, Rick.
Yeah, great topic for conversation, Jeff. Inventory has been one of the Achilles heels in the housing market for the last few years. We've had a definite housing shortage. The builders simply stopped building after the Great Recession, and have only come back to average levels of housing starts about a year ago. So we are working at a pretty severe deficit nationally. We have about a 3.5 month supply of homes available for sale across the country. We'd normally like to see that closer to a 5 month supply. But we are starting to see some regional variances in this, and we are starting to see more people list their homes because it's been a couple of years where we've had an unusually low number of listings. So in the Northeast and parts of the Midwest, we still see very few homes being listed for sale. And because of that, we're seeing prices continue to go up on a year-over-year basis. But when you start looking at some of the other markets, the Gulf Coast states, for example, parts of the South and Texas in particular, along with Florida, Louisiana, we're starting to actually see what looks like a bit of an oversupply. And as you see more of those properties coming to market, and that supply is starting to outpace demand, we're also starting to see home price appreciation slow down, and in some cases actually turn negative year over year. So while overall inventory again is probably up about 29% year over year, there are some parts of the country with too much supply for current demand, and other parts of the country that are still lacking what they need just to meet the needs and desires of potential home buyers.
So there's been a lot of talk about some of the publicly traded builders around the country, and most of these builders have a very diverse footprint. And some of the tools that they've been using, such as interest rate buy downs, etc. Are these tools still working for them today? Is it still driving new construction let's say, a more bespoke area of the country?
Well, I think in general, you can say that the concessions, the enticements that the builders have been offering have worked very well. Last year, existing home sales were down slightly from the prior year. We sold about 4 million existing homes compared to 4.1 million the year before. But new home sales actually ticked up. We ended the year with about 684,000 new home sales. So it was a much higher percentage of overall sales, and it was up on a year-over-year basis. So those tools that the builders are using have been working and have been working pretty well. The builders have also been very selective about where they're building. So they've largely built where they've seen population shifting. We've seen people move out of states like California and New York and Illinois into parts of the Midwest or the Plain States or the Southeast. And the builders have followed them, and that's where they're building their properties. And the builders have also adjusted what they're building in terms of the quality of the finish, the quality of goods in the properties, and the footprint, the size of the houses as well. So I think the public builders have done a really good job of adapting to changing market conditions, and are likely to continue to do so as we go through 2025.
Have they learned their lessons from the Great Recession?
I don't see any parts of the country, Jeff, where the builders are overbuilding. You might have a little bit of that going on in the Gulf Coast area of Florida, where the builders perhaps overshot the mark a little bit. But that's partly due to a confluence of issues going on at Florida right now, not the least of which is an unexpected surge in existing home listings. But elsewhere in the country, I think the builders have been both optimistic about the future. We see the number of permits actually increasing on a year-over-year basis when it comes to single-family homes. But they've also been very precise about how quickly they're building these properties so that they don't have the same problem they had. You're raising a great point, Jeff, because most people don't realize right before the market crashed back in 2008, there was about a 13-month supply of existing homes available for sale, which is probably twice as much as we'd see in a healthy market. So I do think the builders learned their lesson back then and are being much more circumspect about how much inventory they carry.
When we think about demand for both new housing and existing stock, certainly a lot of it's driven by opportunistic moves from interest rates, moving up, moving down. How do we think about demand in 2025 if we stay static? If we stay where we are today, how do we think about demand, Rick?
Demand, fortunately for the market, is demographically driven. The average age of a first-time buyer has actually peaked last year at about 38 years old, which is more than 10 years older than a first-time buyer was a decade ago. So, because home prices are so high and affordability is so weak, people are waiting longer and longer to make that first purchase. But we have a record number of millennials hitting that age next year. So we haven't reached the peak buying period for millennials yet. And as you know, the millennials are the largest generation in US history. So we still have several years of peak demand coming from millennials. And right on their heels is the first wave of the Gen Z buyer coming in at numbers on an annual basis that are almost as high as the millennials. So we have demographic demand as a tailwind for the housing market. We have some pent-up demand from the last few years from people who have opted to wait until market conditions improved a little bit. So I really don't think if you're looking at things nationally that we have any shortage of demand really for the next 4, 5, 6 years. And as market conditions improve just a little bit, we should see those home sales numbers creep up.
Exciting times for 2025. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Jeff.